Your presents now.
Why are you doing this?
I forgot to tell you, they don't really like it when you ask that question.
We are talking the Christmas anthology movie, All the Creatures Worth Stirring. Now this is written and directed by the team of David Ian McKendry and Rebecca McKendry, and this has 5 individual stories and a wraparound story. Now the wraparound story is fairly inconsequential, to be quite honest, and is the story of this couple going on a first date on Christmas Eve. And they decide to go to this kind of theatre, this kind of experimental theatre. And there they kind of see a variety of different performances, each of which there are 5 stories. It does have a little bit of a twist in this one, but I've got to say I thought the wraparound was one of the weaker elements to this kind of actual story. There is obviously a little bit of a, oh, what's going on type situation towards the end, but I don't think there was much to it, to be honest. But there are some decent segments here, and the first 2 to me are particularly strong. The first one has this kind of, the setup is like an office party kind of just before Christmas, and we have a variety of people kind of in their office party doing Secret Santa and stuff. However, the office seems to be overtaken by some type of serial killer who has locked everyone in, kind of, you know, stopped people from dialing out on their phones, etc. and has killed a bunch of people. And the people that are left in this kind of like this break room have to do a kind of a game where they unwrap presents, some of which will kill them, some of which may end up helping them. But the idea being that ultimately it kind of shows how quickly how people will turn on each other. It's a fun, well-made little movie here with memorable characters, even despite the fact that we have a short running time, and obviously a little bit of a message in there. It does also have elements of fun. There's some good kind of practical effects in there as well. People may turn on each other a little bit too quickly in this, I feel. There is a time limit in regards to what that may be, but nonetheless, I felt maybe people just turn on each other a little bit too quickly, but there you go. But it was overall, I really enjoyed that one. The second one I also really enjoyed, and it's probably the most traditional horror out the 5 stories. And this one focuses on this guy who, on Christmas Eve, is just going around getting the final kind of bits of shopping. Just as the store closes, he manages to lock his keys and his mobile phone inside his car, and he's obviously stuck in this kind of now empty parking lot, apart from one van which has got these 2 women in there, who he asks if they can borrow their phone, which they oblige, but they may have more sinister motivations going on there. Now this one is, like I said, is the more kind of straight horror film, and it has a creature feature element to it. To be honest with you, despite this being called All the Creatures Were Stirring, this is the only one which is really a creature feature. But I've got to say, this one was probably the best out of the bunch. The first one was strong as well, because it actually really has a full arc, I would say, and it has a kind of quite fun, unique premise. It's somewhat like Night of the Demon, I would say, but I thought the acting was all good here, the effects are good, and it has a kind of a little neat hook to it. And also, the antagonists are really just, they're not villains, they're antagonists, if that makes sense. The third one is a little weaker, and it's essentially a story of kind of a Scrooge Christmas Carol type remake, but obviously truncated and kind of shortened down. But it seems that there doesn't seem to be a lot of point to it. It's fairly well done, and they've got this grumpy guy who doesn't really like Christmas, who kind of spends it on his own. He has this kind of neighbour who's a bit more cheery and stuff, and you know, he's visited by entities, shall we say. The fourth one is by far the weakest, and this is where a guy has an automobile accident and he runs over a deer, and this deer comes back from the dead and seeks revenge, and it's just a little short one, to be honest. It's probably the shortest one, but it's just weak. There's no real story in it. It's just a kind of a homage to the Evil Dead to a certain degree in the way the kind of the camera angles are in regards to this kind of deer kind of charging, you know, the force kind of going through, that type of thing. But there's just not much to it really, and ultimately it becomes a bit more of just a filler, that one. The last one has a quite probably the weirdest premise, Without kind of giving away spoilers, we have this guy who wants to be left alone initially, and we think he's a werewolf because he's looking at the full moon and thinking, oh, he's sort of a werewolf. It isn't. It's something to do with another type of paranormal threat, shall we say. And he's kind of, needs to be left alone for reasons that you'll see. But a bunch of his friends turn up and kind of want to give him this kind of secret surprise party. And they get embroiled into a plot where these, shall we call them entities, are curious about Christmas, and they're becoming a little bit of more of a science fiction one, that one. So that's it, that's the kind of your basic stories. I've got to say, the majority of stories here are either okay or strong, so it's certainly not a bad compilation. I'm not the biggest anthology fan, to be honest with you, because I feel you can never really get particularly strong characterizations in these kind of short films. But nonetheless, I felt all of the stories, but maybe with the exception of the reindeer one, were sort of, you know, had fairly kind of well-defined sort of characters, and you know, were at least entertaining. The weakest ones being the fourth druid, probably the wraparound as well. It does have a neat image to the wraparound story, but it's really somewhat kind of like drags on, if I'm honest. But you can certainly do worse, I would say. I'm reminded of the Christmas horror stories from a couple of years ago. It's probably kind of on par with that to a certain degree. I'd say this is worth a watch if you're wanting something sort of festive and you're a bit of a horror fan, and you could certainly do a lot worse. That had some fun, had decent production values. I think all the kind of the effect works here was all good. The casts were all pretty good. The only recognisable name for me in regards to the cast was Constance, who's in the kind of the final story. Yeah, I mean it's an okay mix. It's certainly an above average, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.